Philadelphia has made yet another move, this time for a former superstar whose fall-off is concerning, but there's a tie to the Birds that might bring back his Pro Bowl form. Oh, and he's clearly just part of a grander scheme Howie has brewing. Also, the latest report out of Cleveland that none of us are going to want to hear, and why one NFL insider thinks they figured out Vic Fangio's preferred target before Tuesday. I'm Thomas Mott. This is the Thomas Mott Show. Howie Roseman is at it again, as for the second time in less than a week, he's traded for a cornerback with serious historical upside but little to show for as of late. But while some might be scratching their heads regarding the Birds' latest trade, reports are emerging this is far from their last move. First, how about a fun giveaway on this show where you drop a like and comment down below your prediction for Howie Roseman's next trade for the NFL trade deadline. This video gets 70,000 views, and one of you gets it right, I'll go ahead and randomly select them on my next show to win a Game Changer shirt of your choice. So, best guess down below. Now, as many of you saw on Saturday evening, Philadelphia made yet another trade, sending a 2026 6th-round pick for Ravens cornerback Jaire Alexander and a 2027 7th rounder, all while also placing Marcus Epps and Azeez Ojulari on injured reserve to create more roster spots. Of course, you probably recognize the name Jaire Alexander from his time as one of the top, 3 best man-cover cornerbacks in the entire NFL with the Green Bay Packers, where most recently, back in 2022, he finished with 5 interceptions and a Pro Bowl season, but he then followed it up with back-to-back injured years, only played 7 games in 23 and 24 before signing this past offseason with the Baltimore Ravens. And by all reports, he's 100% healthy right now, but he's hardly been able to get on the football field with the Ravens. And as we'll see, when he's been on the football field, it's not been very good, leaving all of us to wonder, is this a cornerback 2 move? Is this a depth move? What was Howie thinking? Alexander has only played in 2 games for the Ravens this entire season, despite, as I said, being healthy and on a very bad defense. With one Ravens insider telling Eagles Eric on Twitter, Jaire's often injured knee is, quote, braised oxtail fall off the bone tender. Yikes. And in those 43 coverage snaps with the Ravens, he's given up 5 catches on 5 targets for a 118 passer rating. And so, let's just be honest right here, Jaire has plenty of room for improvement, but this is not the Pro Bowl cornerback that I think a lot of people with the name are expecting. I'm not really sure what's going on here, although if he can play, he definitely has an opportunity opposite of Quinton Mitchell. My best guess is I see this going one of 2 ways. Option A, Alexander played under current Eagles defensive back coach Christian Parker during his time in Green Bay, and Parker loved him then and believes he can get Jaire back to his Pro Bowl form or close to on the outside for, key factor here, pennies on the dollar. Low risk, high reward. Option B, of course, Alexander is simply a depth move, like Michael Carter a couple of days ago, because Philadelphia could be about to trade away one of their current cornerbacks in Kelee Ringo, Adoree Jackson, or Ja'Cory Bennett. And option B, or the depth move, simply means that they wanted another body with experience behind whoever the starter is going to be, because they might be trading Adoree Jackson or Kelee Ringo in the coming days to get an edge rusher, as we'll talk about. So either they're going to give him the CB2 spot right off the bat, or he's going to be a depth guy. Either way, is another body in a very crowded cornerback room. Honestly, as a glass half full kind of person, I love the experience. I kind of thought maybe we're getting like Darius Slay 2.0, although clearly not the same player that Darius Slay was last year. But he has the experience and the leadership that could be great in a very young cornerback room. I also think he's the first domino in what will be likely another 1 or 2 trade moves over the next few days. And Howie Roseman just double-crossing his I's and dotting his T's to make sure whatever move he does make doesn't hurt the Birds' depth as they gear up for yet another playoff run. And it sounds like, honestly, we might know who that next trade will be, as NFL Network reporter and noted Eagle fan Cameron Wolfe tweeted late Saturday night, quote, "The Philadelphia Eagles would like to trade for Dolphin edge rusher Jaelan Phillips at the right price, per sources." Until Vic Fangio thinks highly of Phillips from last year in Miami, 2023, he would help fill the Eagles' need for yet another pass rusher. And I guess that right there might give us the answer to which pass rusher Vic Fangio has been eyeing, because we've talked about a ton of them. Sounds like it's going to be Jaelan Phillips. And honestly, this makes a ton of sense, as Phillips flourished under Fangio during his 2023 campaign with the Dolphins, where he registered 6.5 sacks. While I personally champion Phillips' teammate Bradley Chubb as my edge trade target, there's one thing that Jaelan has here that obviously Bradley Chubb does not. He remains on his current rookie contract and sits a whopping 4 years younger than Bradley Chubb. He also fits the current price. As The Athletic noted on Saturday morning, the Dolphins are looking for a 3rd-round draft pick, something Howie Roseman has 3 of in next April's 2026 draft. All of this, of course, must be taken with a grain of salt. Could be a smokescreen. Miami could be hinting the Eagles want him. That drives the price up for other players. You get my point here. But if it's true, Phillips makes a ton of sense. And he also fits the bill that I've wanted for any edge rusher move. current production this year. 3 sacks. He's coming off a game last Thursday night versus the Ravens where he had a season-high 5 pressures. This guy is producing right now and would be an instant plug-and-play upgrade alongside Jelix Hunt, Nolan Smith, and Brandon Graham. Anything, of course, is possible. Chubb, for example, could end up being cheaper than Phillips due to the aforementioned age, and he has a much bigger contract. But if I had to push all my chips into one pot right now, it would be Phillips, but I'm not a betting man. One thing that might boost this whole idea of Miami and Philadelphia is the fact they just fired their GM on Friday, meaning interim GM Champ Kelly will be calling the trade shots going forward. What do you know? He's got connections to Philadelphia, as him and Joe Douglas worked together in Chicago back in 2015, and he and Matt Russell worked together in Denver for 6 seasons. Now, moving on, and of course, we must mention the big trade deadline jackpot, if we're talking about edge rushers, as Myles Garrett's been the talk of the town in Philadelphia the past 48 hours. However, the newest update this morning sounds like the Browns are having some cold feet. As insiders told The Athletic, quote, Cleveland star edge rusher Myles Garrett is not getting traded. Teams have checked in, but as one high-ranking source texted, he's a Brown and will remain a Brown. And that, of course, could be a smokescreen, or it's the reality of the Browns not wanting to trade the best player maybe in franchise history, Myles Garrett, coming off of 5 sacks just a week ago. Again, I'm hoping this is not true. I have said many times that I would love Myles Garrett for the right price, but if the Browns are not even interested, it won't matter if Howie offers 3 first-rounders or 4 first-rounders because they're not going to take that deal. I said a few days ago I would give up 2 first-rounders for Myles Garrett, but not a third. I've kind of changed my mind on that. I've come around. I would give up 3 first-rounders for Myles Garrett. You never know who the first-rounders are going to be. You could be giving up the equivalent of Quinyon Mitchell or the equivalent of, Jaelan Phillips. It could be very interesting what Howie Roseman decides to do, but it takes 2 to tango, and that's why I'm giving like a 2, 3, maybe a 5% chance Myles Garrett is an Eagle by Tuesday afternoon. And that does lead into at least an update on Trey Hendrickson, as The Athletic also has an update as of Saturday morning, where they confirm, quote, many teams, including the Rams, 49ers, Lions, Colts, and Eagles, have called the Bengals on numerous players, including Logan Wilson, Cam Taylor-Britt, and of course, Trey Hendrickson. For now, some teams don't believe Cincinnati has any real interest in moving its core pieces, which, again, could be the Bengals trying to say, pay more, and then we'll move Trey Hendrickson, but it also shows a lot of other teams like the Niners really want to go ahead and get Trey Hendrickson, and so the bidding war is probably going to be pretty strong. My guess is he goes for a 2nd and maybe a 5th, and I'm not sure how he's really that interested. I've said all along, I love Trey Hendrickson. He kind of is my top pick right now, just skill-wise behind Myles Garrett, but as I mentioned, a bidding war might drive the birds away. Howie has those 3 third-rounders in 2026, and I think we'd rather ditch that on a much younger player than spend, a 2nd on a guy who turned 30 this year and is in the final year of a very expensive contract. There is one other update, though, on one other edge rusher we must mention before ending here, and that is current Jets pass rusher Jermaine Johnson, who I've talked about a lot before on my show as really an idea. We've never had any real reporting linking him to Philadelphia until The Athletic said on Saturday, quote, the Eagles need an edge rusher and asked the Jets about Jermaine Johnson. Makes sense, considering former Jets GM Joe Douglas drafted him in New York as now Philadelphia's senior personnel director. However, New York has had a high asking price of a 2nd-round pick or better. And of course, as I said a couple of minutes ago, a 2nd is a lot to ask, but unlike the 30-year-old Hendrickson, Johnson is only in his 4th year as a pro, and despite an injury-filled 2024, many consider him to be one of the best, most explosive young edge rushers in the entire NFL. I think right now it's between a Dolphin and a Jet for Philadelphia's edge rusher needs. Yes, Hendrickson is probably out there. Yes, I would call the Browns for Myles Garrett, but in reality, if you were going to bet your house on what the Birds are going to do next, I go Jaelan Phillips, Jermaine Johnson, then Bradley Chubb. I think in that order, mainly Jermaine Johnson ahead of Bradley Chubb because of the age and the contract, but the price is kind of the not really the selling point there for Johnson. Might move him to 3rd either way. I think it's going to be Jaelan Phillips. I believe Cameron Wolfe. I think Jaelan Phillips is going to be the next move, and my guess is they're going to send Kelee Ringo to Miami plus a later round pick to go ahead and give the Dolphins a young potential cornerback. Maybe Kelee works there. He didn't work here. Either way, that's my guess. We will see. We'll cover it, obviously, as soon as it happens. Now, many of you guys are probably wondering, Thomas, you said on Thursday's show that was your last show before becoming a father, and, well, I guess I lied. This news was big enough. The big trade was obviously enough for Jaire Alexander, and so this will be my last show, barring a trade on Sunday for my Monday birth of my daughter. And so after Monday, we'll take a little bit of time off and then come back. But I do appreciate all the comments, all the thoughts and prayers. I'm pumped to be a dad, and I'll update you guys whenever it happens on Monday morning. Philadelphia's made a move. We're covering it here on the channel late on a Saturday evening. I'm Thomas Mott. This has been the Thomas Mott Show.